Welcome to First Coast Realty's Consumer Coaching.
This week on Consumer Coaching, we continue our 8-part professional property management series. This week's episode is Part 3, Landlord-Tennant Laws. Please keep in mind that the information in this video pertains to Florida Landlord-Tenant Laws. If you are residing in a state other than Florida, it is imperative that you reach out to legal representation in your state to make sure that you are up to date on your state's current laws. Laws can differ from state to state. It is imperative that property managers and homeowners be up to date on the state of Florida Landlord-Tenant Laws. These laws include but are not limited to the lawful conducting of background checks, anti-discrimination laws, eviction laws, property inspection laws, and, as becoming even more prevalent, the laws surrounding service animals. Property owners and/or property management companies working on behalf of an owner will conduct thorough background checks on any and all prospective tenants. These checks will include a search for past felony convictions, any past evictions. They will want to verify your employment or your source of income, and they will also run a credit check. Every owner or property management company has their own threshold, so if you have any questions, be sure to ask your individual owner or property manager. On average, tenants usually need a base score of at least 600 to be considered a quality candidate. Section 2, Anti-Discrimination Laws. The Fair Housing Act is the federal law that prohibits housing providers, including condominiums and homeowners associations, from enforcing rules and covenants that discriminate on the basis of certain protected classes. The accepted protected classes in the Fair Housing Act include race, color, sex, religion, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you feel you have been discriminated against based on any of these protected classes, it is important that you report this to the authorities. An eviction is when a landlord forces a tenant to move out. To evict a tenant in Florida, a landlord must follow the procedures governed by Chapter 83 of the Florida statutes. Failure to follow proper procedure could lead to an eviction suit being dismissed or having to start over, thus costing you more time and money. The eviction process is generally a 7-step process that includes notice to the tenant of eviction, a termination with cause if the owner is willing to allow the tenant to remedy the situation, or a termination without cause if the owner is no longer interested in working with the tenant to remedy the situation. The filing of an eviction complaint with your local clerk of courts, a 5-day response from the tenant to the complaint, an eviction hearing will be scheduled, pending the outcome of the hearing, removal of the tenant. Please keep in mind, for both the tenant and the owner, it is better to avoid an eviction process. They are long, complicated, and can be scary for both an owner and a tenant to undertake. This is why it is prudent for property owners and property managers to screen prospective tenants from the very beginning. Evictions should be a last resort. Please keep in mind, eviction laws during the COVID-19 epidemic are constantly changing. Under executive order, Governor Ron DeSantis placed a moratorium on evictions that expired in October. The Center for Disease Control passed a federal moratorium over evictions, which expired at the end of 2020. Now, in 2021, Florida courts have begun hearing eviction cases again. This changes often, so please make sure you seek legal representation if you are facing eviction during the COVID-19 epidemic. Landlords, property managers, and tenants should all be knowledgeable as to the specific rules regarding property inspections. The landlord and/or their representative have the right to enter the property to carry out inspections. However, there are certain rules and regulations that apply. In order for the landlord or agent to enter the property, reasonable notice to the tenant must be given, clearly stating why and when they intend to enter the property. Unless it is an emergency situation, or adequate notice is given unannounced, visitors by the owner, agent, or anyone acting under the instructions, for example, tradesmen, are not permitted to enter the property. Service animal laws cover a broad range of legal topics. As of July 1st, 2020, Florida passed new laws governing emotional support animals, or ESAs. These new laws clarify how residents of Florida can properly qualify for an emotional support animal and affirm the special rights ESA owners have. The new rules in Florida are similar in many ways to the federal fair housing rules for emotional support animals and borrow many of the same concepts. An emotional support animal in Florida is an animal that provides assistance or therapeutic emotional support to its owner by its mere presence. An ESA does not need any special training to work or perform tasks for its owner. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of First Coast Realty's Consumer Coaching. Please join us next week as we continue our 8-part series. Next week's episode is Part 4, Tenant Placement.